So welcome to April's Microsoft product terms update session. I'm with Richard and Neve, my esteemed colleagues and licensing experts within Sound Practice here at version 1. And we just want to talk through the product updates and the term updates for April that have been announced by Microsoft, just to keep everyone in the loop and up to date with all things changing in the world of Microsoft licensing. So welcome, Richard. I think you've picked the lucky straw of the first item, which is the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare add-on.
Yeah, I mean, the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare generally itself as a product is what Microsoft has there to help organizations accelerate their transformation by augmenting the Microsoft Cloud with industry-relevant compliance, security, and interoperability standards. Essentially, the aim here is to allow patients have direct contact with their care team and also allows the care provider the ability to connect data from multiple sources while managing their workforce by providing them with artificial intelligence and tools that reduce administrative tasks and also helps automate those tasks. This change simply adds Microsoft Cloud for healthcare to the EA, EAS, and EES programs. That's really what this change is. Yeah.
Brilliant, great stuff. So the next one, the next change, yep, out of the hat is me, and that's the remote help aspect of Microsoft 365. So what they've done is extend the available prerequisite table for remote help from Microsoft 365 E5 to include also the F1, F3, and E3 plans, as well as EMS, E3, and Intune. But really, I suppose what is remote help about? It's one of a number of premium sort of add-on capabilities that will sit within the Microsoft Endpoint Manager product suite. Microsoft is trying to position itself as a single cloud-powered solution for organizations. And this remote help is one of those new capabilities, but it's the only one that's currently in general availability. So the expectation is that there'll be a series of other product updates and package updates that will be made available across the Microsoft 365 suite in the near future. And this remote help that is generally available now is essentially a secure and real-time Windows devices help desk features. It's not available for Android or iOS at the moment. But what it does do is just increase the security and the level of authentication between the remote users seeking help and the help desk, for example, that is providing that help by having Azure AD accounts linked to the same tenant to allow that secure tunnel to be created for remote access to be provided. So it's just one of these premium capabilities that Microsoft's keen on making more available to a greater number of prerequisite users. And so the next one I think is on the Windows desktop operating system. So I'll quickly touch on this, which is the Windows 11 Pro per device license has now been made available to CSP customers. Again, Microsoft sort of broadening the spectrum of availability of services through the CSP platform. Traditionally, it's been a per user subscription model primarily, but this is now sort of extending it onto the per device. So multiple devices, doesn't have to have a single user assigned to it. It can just be licensed on a per device basis. So it's just opening up that broadening of availability of licenses through CSP. I think Neve, you're picking up the next one, which is the Microsoft Dynamics 365 services.
Yeah, this is Dynamics seems to have been pretty busy with a couple of changes or the odd removal in there this month. So I guess first up was the addition of the the customer voice and digital messaging to Dynamics 365. And now this is only available to enterprise agreement customers. And essentially what that is, I guess, is when I kind of looked into it, is the capabilities for kind of voice bots and messaging and so on. So again, this was Microsoft, and this would be in a per user. We've seen a lot of like services which have been added on services and add-ins and so on, which would be kind of per tenant, but this would be kind of a per user one. Um, the next up then was, I guess Microsoft just added in kind of a clause for third-party transfers for Dynamics 365 customers. And again, like that's kind of where Dynamics 365 customers who would be making any, funds transfers, no doubt maybe to customers or to suppliers and so on and business partners, that the system through which those funds transfers are done or executed, that Microsoft just basically specifies that that third party service provider, they're the ones who are responsible for kind of for the funds and so on. Another one then was just like an update to the embedded editions of the Dynamics 365. Now this only affected the Microsoft Customer Agreement or CSP customers. And then finally, the removal of the team members license features clause, as Microsoft said that's not relevant now for kind of new customers. And like from what I kind of read into this was that, since it's been removed, that this was probably related to the changes that Microsoft announced back in 2019 with the gated kind of uh, technical gating of team members to kind of entities, custom entities, and so on. And I guess that's just not, that's not relevant now at this point, as probably a lot of customers will have transitioned into kind of new kind of agreements and so on. So, and I guess look, so with Dynamics 365 being really busy, then there was just like a very simple one for Microsoft Teams, and that's where Microsoft just made a clarification. That's all it was with regard to external user entitlements, and what that included was Teams webinars. And so Teams webinars, that's just being added to Teams meetings and Teams live events, where they said that there's no USL requirement. You don't need to use a license for external users to access team webinars, which I guess, just thinking out loud, that's possibly just to make sure that there's no doubt in anyone's mind, that a license would be needed for external users in a webinar scenario, and to encourage kind of the use of Teams webinars at the same time.
Good stuff. Brilliant. So, and then the next item was was for Richard. So it's the privacy and security terms. Do you want to quickly talk through the changes that have been announced on that one?
Yeah, this is also more or less a straightforward change and kind of showing Microsoft's commitments to privacy. So with this change, Microsoft simply added the Azure health data services to the Microsoft Azure core services section of the core online services table. Apart from that, there's nothing changed, and essentially they're just moving it under the data protection addendum of the privacy and security terms. That's it. It was pretty straightforward.
A technicality more than anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. I suppose the next one was Microsoft Bookings has been added to student use benefits. So I suppose this is a bit of an extension or continuation of their theme from last month, which was adding audio services capabilities to the students, Microsoft and Office 365 SKUs. So the way that we see this is it could really be seen as a means of sort of strengthening the case for Microsoft Teams as the compelling sort of go-to tool for collaboration and communication.
Imagine so.
Yeah, by bringing bookings functionality to more academic users and the institutions themselves. So every appointment booked on as an online meeting would then sort of create a meeting link that everyone can join virtually from anywhere, and all managed through bookings as an app on mobile devices or actual laptops, desktops. and it just helps with the scheduling of calendars, assigning staff to tasks, without ever having to ultimately leave your Microsoft Teams user experience, shall we say. So that's just an extension again. And I suppose the last one was which popped up just after the announcement of the product updates, was just confirmation on the universal terms for online services, which is essentially the reinforcing of the cancellation terms of essentially what our CSP license is. So it was 72 hours. That's now been raised to 7 days, so a different metric, but the same, essentially extending it from 3 days to 7 days or 168 hours, whereby a customer can cancel any of those new orders for example, Dynamics 365 or Microsoft 365 and not incur the liability of having to pay for the remainder of the term. So they would actually be allowed to cancel it in full and just receive a pro rata rebate for the bit they've already paid, and then have no liability over the rest of the term. Includes weekends, bank holidays, and the pro rata credit is only for the 24-hour periods that haven't actually been sort of clocked into. So if you do it after 2 days, then you don't get the full rebate. You lose that first 2 days of rebate. So it's just really forcing that term again, the new terms. So it's still not massively flexible, but it's slightly more flexible.
Slightly better than 72 hours.
Yeah, and it's done on the time zone that you're in yourself, not centralized European time or Eastern Pacific time. So, but it is on that strict. The time of the day that you do it is when the clock starts ticking.
Good stuff. Good to know.
Yeah.
I think then we noticed a couple of other nothing kind of major to write about, apart from what I was interested in seeing was that they've just pretty much announced that they've updated the system center is now launch wave 2022, and I believe there was kind of an added clause for NVIDIA components, which I'm not really kind of
I think that's something to do with licensing, imports and exports, and use of third-party hardware within the Azure tenancy, within Azure. It has any, unless you work for NVIDIA, any great weight really. So no noticeable differences on that. I think with the system center, what I think no change to licensing terms, which is what this sort of communication piece is all about. But I think just on a broader note, it's interesting to see that Microsoft are continuing to really plow the money into System Center as an enterprise suite of products. So that's reassuring to know that the focus is still, they're still focusing on that on-prem piece, as well as just solely Azure.
Major updates every 2 years, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, which is good, because there's still, whilst everyone's being encouraged to move to the cloud, I think there's still a good argument, but from a lot of sectors and a lot of use case scenarios for on-prem.
Yeah, absolutely. From what I'm seeing as well.
Yeah. So that's April. Wow, I can't look. Looking forward to May. What's coming up in May? So no real major changes, no dramatic sort of new release updates or changes to license terms, but always good to keep on top of these things. And by doing it month on month, then hopefully there'll be no major shocks when it comes to any other changes in the future.
If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach us at version 1. Our details are displayed on the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.